Page 2 of the RPA. Paragraph 2, buyer representative / buyer broker compensation. The close of escrow or the exchange of the subject property, seller shall pay the buyer's representative / buyer's broker, 3% of the gross sales price of the property or X amount of dollars. Upon execution of the RPA or subsequent counteroffers, this clause is no longer negotiable exclusively, spit it out, Tim, exclusively between buyer and seller, and any modification thereafter must be ratified in writing by the buyer's representative / buyer's broker. This section, gang, is very important, and I'm going to say this 5 or 6 times through the RPA. Certain areas are more important than others. This area is where you get paid, okay? This is where you're going to put in a percentage here. 2.5%, 3%, 4%, 1.5%. But typically you're going to put 3. That's your commission. We're going to ask the seller to pay 3% out of the seller's proceeds to pay your commission, okay? You've also already had this conversation with your buyer about the RPA. I'm sorry, about the BBRA, okay? So they know, they're going to know what this is when you explain to them that the reason I'm putting this here, Mr. Buyer, is that we're going to request and I'm going to negotiate on your behalf that the seller pays my commission, okay? All right, Section 3, additional financial terms and contingencies. A, new loan application. Within blank business days following the date of acceptance, buyer agrees to 1, submit completed loan application to the lender of the buyer's choice, and 2, furnish pre-approval letter to the seller based upon a standard factual credit report and review of debt-to-income ratios. If buyer fails to complete any of these conditions within the applicable time frame, seller reserves the right to terminate the agreement. In such event, both parties agree to cancel the escrow and return EMD to the buyer. Buyer shall use buyer's best efforts to obtain financing under the terms, conditions outlined in this agreement. Okay, if you notice I have the word done here. When you pull this up, it's going to be blank. Okay, it looks, when you read it, it says within blank business days. So common sense says you would put a number there, 3 business days, 1 business day, whatever. No, you don't want to put a number there. You want to put the word done with a capital O-N-E for 1, okay? The reason you put the word done there is that your buyer already has a pre-approval letter. If they don't have a pre-approval letter, you're not helping them. You're not writing up this offer unless you've physically seen the pre-approval letter from the lender and you've reached out to the loan officer. Very important, okay? Part B of paragraph 3, appraisal contingency. Buyer's obligation to purchase the property is contingent upon the property appraising for not less than the purchase price. If after the completion of an appraisal by a licensed appraiser, buyer receives written notice from the lender or appraiser that the property has appraised for less than the purchase price, a notice of appraised value, buyer may attempt to renegotiate or cancel the RPA by providing written notice to the seller with a copy of the appraisal no later than blank calendar days following the date of acceptance of the RPA, whereupon buyer is entitled to a whole refund of the EMD referenced in Section 1A by a fully cooperated and executed cancellation of escrow instructions and release of buyer's funds through their reserve right to cancel pursuant to this contingency per NRS 645A.175. Very important. These are bolded for a reason. If this RPA is not canceled in writing on or before the appraisal deadline, the buyer shall be deemed to have waived the appraisal contingency. So we recommend you put 17 days in here. That means from the day this number starts is the day after acceptance. So they accepted your offer on March 1st. By March 17th, the appraisal has to be done. And, all parties agree to the amount, okay? If it goes longer than 18 to 17 days, you're in jeopardy of losing your buyer's earnest money deposit. That has never happened to me in my career. It should never happen to you either. But make sure you take the right classes and talk to your manager about these contingencies. Very, very important, okay? Now, the loan contingency is also important. Paragraph C, loan contingency. Buyer's obligation to purchase the property is contingent upon the buyer obtaining the loan referenced in Section 1C or 1D of the RPA unless otherwise agreed in writing. Buyer shall remove the loan contingency in writing, attempt to renegotiate, or cancel the RPA, providing written notice to the seller no more than, again, this is blank. When you pull it up, we want you to put 27 days. Again, 27 calendar days. This is very important. You're going to see calendar days as we did here. On page 1, you saw business days for the EMD. It's very important that you be detail-oriented and remember the differences from calendar to business days. Okay. If this RPA is not canceled in writing on or before the loan contingency deadline, buyer shall be deemed to have waived the loan contingency. Again, you have 27 days, starting one day after acceptance, for your mortgage loan officer to guarantee the loan is approved. Okay? If it's not, and you're moving forward and it doesn't get approved, and it's day 29, your buyer's going to lose their earnest money deposit. So again, the appraisal contingency, the loan contingency have a lot to do with the mortgage company and the loan officer. So your relationship, your communication, your ability to interact with the loan officer is critical during these 17 days and these 27 days. Okay? Paragraph D, cash purchase. Within blank business days following the date of acceptance, buyer agrees to provide written evidence of a bona fide financial institution of sufficient cash available to complete this purchase. If the buyer does not submit written evidence within the above period, seller reserves the right to terminate the agreement. Okay. If you have a cash buyer, okay, if you do, then that means the loan and the appraisal contingency will not be part of this transaction. Typically, there's no loan, of course, because it's cash, and in most cash buyers do not do an appraisal either. Okay. So again, you're not going to put 3 days. You're not going to wait 3 or 5 days to show the seller you have what we call proof of funds. You're going to put the word done, okay? Because the proof of funds, just like the pre-approval letter, will go over with your offer to the listing agent, who will then give it to the seller, okay? Number 4, sale of the property. A, this agreement is not contingent upon the sale of any other property owned by the buyer. Or B, the attached contingent upon sale addendum is hereby incorporated in this agreement. So again, if your buyer is a renter or they don't own a property now, this does not apply to you. But if your buyer does live in a house and they have to sell that house to buy this house, you have to check off B, and then there's another addendum that your manager will show you to fill out called a contingent upon sale addendum. Okay? Number 5, fixtures and personal property. The following items will be transferred free of liens with the sale of the property with no real value unless stated otherwise herein. Unless an item is covered under Section 8F of this agreement, all items are transferred in as-is condition. All existing fixtures and fittings, including but not limited to electrical, mechanical, lighting, plumbing, and heating fixtures, ceiling fans, fireplace inserts, gas logs and grates, solar systems, built-in appliances, including ranges, ovens, window and door screens, awnings, shutters, window coverings, attached floor coverings, television antennas, satellite dishes, private integrated telephone systems, air coolers, air conditioners, pool spa equipment, garage door openers, remote controls, mailbox, in-ground landscaping, trees, shrubs, water softener, water purifiers, security systems, and alarm. Okay, basically all of that stuff is coming with the house for your buyer. Okay, that's already built into the residential purchase agreement. But below it, line 47 and below, this is really important. We're going to give you what we call a cheat sheet that has all of these all this information on it as far as 17 days, 27 days, and also on this cheat sheet will be this wording. All items per MLS number, and you're going to put the actual MLS number in here. Yeah, we use 7 because the MLS number is 7 digits long. And you want to put the date that the buyer saw the property. And then you want to put, this is just some extra writing. This is not what you're going to put in the RPA. Okay, we just put this in here as an example. You could put in here any specific items that are not in the property that the buyer wants to be part of the deal. You want to put in here the chandelier in the foyer when you walk in. You want the cabinets that are in the garage that the seller probably added, a couple years after they moved in, and you want them to stay. You don't want him to take those cabinets with him. You want to put that in here, okay? You can even go as far as putting in model numbers of appliances if need be, okay? There are instances where appliances get switched out during escrow. Talk to your manager. He'll tell you stories about that. But typically, you're not going to need model numbers of the appliances, but sometimes you may, okay? All right, gang, that's the end of page 2.